Hi, everybody. Welcome to our newest installment of Slam School. Again, in case it's been a while, SLAM stands for the Studies of Literacy and Multimedia Assembly, and we operate through the National Council of Teachers of English. My name's Nicole Mira, and I am the Vice President of SLAM, and this is Antero.
Hi, everyone. I'm Antero. I am the SLAM school organizer, former SLAM president. Yeah.
And we are really excited to be joined today by our friend and colleague, Jaime Del Razo. I want to tell you a little bit about him, and then we're going to spend some time helping all of you out there that are confused about what is going on right now with our DACA youth and how you can support them in and out of the classroom. So Jaime, in addition to being our colleague at UCLA years ago, he's now an assistant professor in the education department at Vassar College, where he studies the intersecting impact of race and class on students of color and how we can work for them in our society. He's also the co-founder of the Chicano Organizing and Research and Education Group, CORE, and he's the scholarship coordinator of the Que Llueva Cafe Scholarship Fund for college-bound undocumented students. So first of all, hi Jaime, welcome.
Thank you, Nicole. Hi, Andrea.
Hello.
So Jaime, we wanted to get you on here because we know there's a lot of educators out there. Even though DACA has been in the news recently, there are many teachers that are, number one, confused about what DACA is, who undocumented youth are in our country, and kind of what the status is right now in our schools. So if you could just tell us a little bit about, first, kind of your expertise on what teachers need to know about who DACA youth are.
Sure. Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to spend some time with both of you. So let's talk specifically about DACA. DACA is a government program that is currently being phased out by the direction of President Trump and his administration. DACA began in 2012 that did two things for a certain class of immigrants, primarily undocumented students, or specifically undocumented students. One, it deprioritized removal of those certain individuals that qualified under DACA. And DACA stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. The reason being is that DHS, more specifically ICE, the Immigration Customs Enforcement Agency, which actually is responsible for enforcement of immigration laws, can't feasibly remove the 11 million plus undocumented people in the country. So they set priorities of who they're going to remove. DACA essentially deprioritized a certain class of undocumented migrants, specifically in this case, youth, from removal proceedings. So they weren't going to be targeted specifically as a high priority removal. Secondly, and the one that we hear a lot about DACA, is that it also gave them a 2-year work permit that gave them legal authorization to work in this country. Now, I want to say something specifically and problematize what we mean by work. What's really important when we do these kind of conversations, and one of the things I always try to bring up is that let's not get confused and think that somehow undocumented people have not worked before DACA, because there have been countless studies that have shown, and those of us that study, that do that kind of work, and or participate and have friends, families that are undocumented, show that they have been a long-standing participant in the economy of this country. The only difference with DACA is that now that they would have some kind of legal permit in the hopes that they would minimize exploitation of these workers, which has been a problem for a very long time. Secondly, it's also very important to note that DACA did not cover everyone. Similar to the DREAM Act, many undocumented youth and a lot of undocumented workers, parents, are left out of such programs. Despite all of that, President Trump decided last month to go ahead and begin phasing that out. At the current moment, no new applications are being accepted, no renewals are being permitted. One good thing is if you do have DACA, it's good until it expires. But at the present moment, there is no legislation, no laws, no directives that will permit anybody to renew their DACA once it is completed or support spot. So that's broadly what the program is about.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of teachers out there that, number one, may not even know if they have undocumented students in their classroom. And that's obviously not a topic that you just want to put students on the spot about. But what would be, through your work with CORE and the work you've done with undocumented students, what do you feel is the most important thing for teachers to do right now? First, we'll get to what they can do as citizens, but also in their classroom right now. Students are scared, obviously. They're feeling unstable. What do you suggest are some things that teachers should be thinking about, or ways that they can maybe try to reach out to students who might be affected by this in their classroom?
Right. Well, my work with undocumented students spans, before even working on this issue as an academic. My dissertation examined the college matriculation of undocumented students. And I would say that for me, this is both an academic and a personal issue. Certainly I have families that are in peril, friends, former students, current students. This is an issue that affects me even beyond my own academic work. I think that there are several things I think we as teachers can do, as educators can do, and I'd like to expand that too to include professors at universities as well, because we are in contact with students that have been affected and are right now very worried. Another thing to also consider is those of us that work at universities, high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, we have to recognize that the campus community isn't just restricted between faculty and students. There are workers in our communities that can be affected. They should be attended to, administrators, staff. This issue can affect us in a variety of ways. It's not just simply working with students. Having said that, I think one of the things we can do in the classroom is to be open about talking about these issues, especially around undocumented students, to become familiar with who is an undocumented student, what are some of the challenges that undocumented students are facing. One of the things that I have seen in my work, both in my academic work and non-academic work, is that there's a very running parallel in one important overlap with the LGBTQ community and the undocumented student community, and that is that both communities, in addition to being oppressed and stigmatized in our society, are also identities that can't be readily identified. You can't walk around and say, well, this person's LGBTQ, this person's undocumented. It doesn't happen that way. LGBTQ folks and also undocumented students and undocumented people have to out themselves to say, like, I am undocumented, I am LGBTQ. So what I have seen in campuses is there's a becoming awareness of LGBTQ issues, being open discussions around LGBTQ issues, with the hopes that creating a safe space at the campus level, at the class level, so that if somebody is LGBTQ, they can feel like they can safely come out, they can safely be who they are. I would say that undocumented folks, I would say is in a similar, that's just one aspect, in a similar vein, that we should be open about welcoming undocumented students into our classrooms and say that this is a space for you, that this is a space where you can come, where you can be a student like the rest of our students, as we do similarly when we talk about issues of race, issues of class, issues of gender, issues of sexuality. I would make sure that in that list of different ways that we know people get oppressed and get separated, that migrant status be included in that same vein, so that then students who are undocumented can feel that they are part of this. As you know, Nicole, you know that education is not apolitical. These are not apolitical spaces. Classrooms, education, schools are political. And I think that teachers should be allowed to express what their politics are. Not partisan per se, but political. Although partisan does play a role, I'm talking about just political leanings of what happens in the classroom. And
yeah, and building on that, even getting deeper in terms of curriculum in the classroom, instruction in the classroom, we could be talking about these issues. But I think there's also a lot of confusion around what schools can legally do in terms of protecting their students. We know that schools take all students. They don't ask about immigration status when they enroll students, but there's been a lot of talk around what does it take to become a sanctuary campus? Does that actually even mean anything? to ICE in terms of how do we protect, I've heard about schools doing phone chains or, making sure that folks are protected. I'm wondering what you've heard around that and any sense of what schools can do beyond the classroom to truly protect their communities.
Right. I mean, the term sanctuary cities, sanctuary schools is something that we hear a lot, right? And to the extent of what schools can do to protect undocumented students, undocumented people, I think it's going to depend on the school itself and the leadership at that school. Certainly, one of the things that I have always recommended about what is the extent that, to what extent can we as educators, we as teachers, we as administrators, leaders of the school do to protect them. I always say that even though I have an opinion of what we can do, it is always best to search out legal counsel because there are other constraints that are at play. And I'd rather that the school be honest about what it can't and cannot do so that faculty, students, staff are aware of what that is. I think that's one of the most important things you can do. Having said that, I personally think that to the extent that we can protect our undocumented folks, and I would consider that being a sanctuary school, being a sanctuary city, being a sanctuary state, should be vigorously achieved in any way possible. But I understand that there's a lot of things at play, and I think sometimes what can get us in trouble is when we do empty rhetoric about saying, well, this is a safe space. And then all of a sudden, you get a knock on the door and it's ICE. What do you do at that moment, right? I think it's important. One of the things we do is do the Know Your Rights leaflets in terms of somebody comes to your house, in case somebody comes to your door, about making sure that unless they have a warrant, you don't let them in. I think when it comes to schools, it gets a little bit more complicated at that point. Most recently on Monday, I had a chance to join a panel of two other lawyers here at Vassar College, where we had an opportunity to talk about some of these very specific questions that you're asking. And one suggestion from one of the lawyers that came said that one of the best things you can do is to actually have legal representation. So for example, if ICE was to come to a campus and say that they're here to issue I think he called it an administrative subpoena, that you can then defer them to legal counsel and say, you need to talk to my lawyer. And the lawyer will be able to address what is the scope of the warrant, and let me see what kind of information you need so that you don't just turn over files. Oftentimes, it's difficult for leadership to know what exactly to do. Again, I'll end with what I started. It's important that you talk to those immigration attorneys that are actually very versed in the law and can help protect you or maximize the legal protection of the campus or a space, be that an community organization space, homes, etc. That's really important to highlight when we start talking about sanctuary states, sanctuary cities, sanctuary spaces.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking about getting involved and becoming informed and reaching out to who's in your community, I think CORE is an amazing example of doing that. So could you share a little bit about how folks can learn more about CORE, ways they can donate, ways they can get involved, the kinds of resources that they can access there?
Yeah, I'd love to. So as you mentioned in my introduction, CORE stands for Chicano Organizing and Research and Education. We are proudly going into our 10th year of offering the Quilloa Café Scholarship, benefiting college-bound undocumented students. Probably the easiest way to find us online is just type in CORE, 2 words, CORE and the word Chicano. I think we're the first hit, no matter what web engine. But I think you'll be able to find us. I can give you the URL. I mean, it's www.ca-core.org. But I always tell people just 2 words and we'll come up. And one of the things that we're always looking for is, of course, funding. We are as grassroots as you can imagine. We are a group of volunteers, of funders, people that have donated to us, people that have read for our scholarship, people that are running the organization. We all have day jobs. This is kind of what we do outside of our day job. But I'm proud to say that in now going into our 10th year of the scholarship, we awarded close to, if not over, $100,000 across the country to undocumented students that have moved on to other things. And to me, you know, when I tell people about immigration, immigration can be a very divisive topic. People on both sides can feel very passionate about what they feel immigrants should or should not be afforded here in this country. One of the things for the longest time I've always have tried to reach out to the humanity of each other is that these are young people searching, doing what we told them to do as educators. We told them to stay in school, they stayed in school. We told them do well, stay out of trouble, they did that. And then come to learn that at the end of their high school career, even though they have the grades, they have the capabilities and certainly the talent to achieve at the highest level as our universities and colleges, they are denied that opportunity because of all the barriers, one primarily being financial, to be able to go and do, I think, what the rest of us have tried to do in our own college experience. To me, that is not something that I can support as an educator, and I'm very open about that.
Yeah. And I think when you talk about the importance of these stories, relating it back to multimedia, I feel like the Dreamer movement has been kind of at the forefront of young people using new media to share their stories. You see the Dreamer stuff on Twitter, Define American, Jose Antonio Vargas. Are there other spaces, and this is for Antero and Jaime, all of us can try to think of more resources where students can go online, or we could integrate new media into our classroom to talk about this movement in politics?
Sure. I mean, one organization that I know has done a lot of work, continues to do a lot of work, is United We Dream. I've had the opportunity to go to one of their conferences that was held in Houston, either last year or the year before. They continue to be one of the biggest network of undocumented students that are doing work, active work around this issue. I think it's important that we see some of that work. But I also tell students, you know, one question I always get asked when I talk about undocumented students, the plight of undocumented students, movement around undocumented students, is what can I do to get involved? And certainly, you know, we talk about get involved in these organizations, go to the protests, go to the marches, and trust me when I tell you, I think that's right. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But what I try to always, because I've been doing this now for a little while, and you know, it's like, you know, we have to recognize that this is all intersected with other areas of oppression. This is all connected with issues of race, issues of class that continue to come out. It isn't as though here is the immigrant rights folks, here are the racial justice folks, here are the women rights folks, but to try to see ways that we all intersect together and in our fight against oppressive dominance. I think that's really important. So, for example, I myself may be working a lot on the issue of immigrant rights, but I'm very concerned with the issue of racial justice. I'm very concerned with the issue of school to prison pipeline. I'm very concerned with the issue of women's rights, because in the end, we are all interconnected in one way. And so what I try to tell students is, certainly, if you're looking at a specific issue that's affecting you more and you feel more passionate about, of course, you know, pursue that. But try to see ways that it intersects with other areas of oppression so that we don't feed into the divide and conquer mentality that I think a lot of oppressive forces want us to think. Well, I'm the immigrant rights folks and you're the racial justice folks, so you know, my issue is more important than yours. But instead, try to see ways of intersecting with one another. Lastly, I would also say this. This issue is something that should be sustained for a long time. This isn't going to go away. You know, whatever happens with the DREAM Act or not, or the other bills that are right now currently being litigated or discussed rather in Congress, they're not going to go away. There's going to be an issue that's going to keep persisting. For me, I know we often say life is short, and many times it can be, but life can also be very long. What is our commitment through our academic careers, through our personal life, that we can say, how are we going to keep with this issue? And some of those can be areas where there are no video cameras, where there are no hashtags, where there are nothing that you really can say, look what I did. But change also happens at those kitchen tables when somebody invites you and says, can you come talk to my son, to my daughter? They're confused about what to do about getting in college, and you sit there and you talk to them and you move on. It happens at a bus stop. when you're sitting there, you're waiting for the bus, and somebody brings up an issue, a divisive issue, and you make sure to come in. It happens when you hear oppressive talk in our own family and circle of friends, and you say, you know what, that's not cool. You know, we need to not go there. We need to be able to do that. And all those moments take time and courage and are difficult and uncomfortable and messy. But those are also small spaces that are not discussed openly, but matter nonetheless to start changing this discourse around dehumanization of oppressed people. Certainly that group belonging in addition to undocumented people. So
yeah, I think
that's really important.
Yeah, that's a powerful reminder of the big stuff and the little stuff that we need to do. And Antero, I wanted to throw it to you, make sure you didn't get any questions missed here, and also have us learn how folks are going to be able to access this and gain more resources moving forward.
Yeah, I think, Jaime, I really appreciate both the long and the short view on this. So thanks for helping us think about this. Just we're gonna put some links below, right? So if you're watching this on YouTube, look down and click on things, right, that Jaime's pointed to. One resource that is on the United We Dream website that some of my students here at Stanford have recommended that I found useful are these red cards that are kind of know your rights if immigration and customs enforcement show up, and they're in English and Spanish and are easy to download, and I think you can order them as well. So I'll link to that because I think that's a useful space. And I also just want to echo back to this reminder that we don't know who are in our classrooms, and regardless of where you are in the United States, right, the issues of immigration and the issues of treating all of our students with dignity are the issues that we can't ignore or eschew, because we have other kinds of standards that we need to address, right? Like this is the foundation. So I think that's really important, and I appreciate it. So this and Nicole, you were thinking about what are other ways that kids can get involved. I would say a good starting place is to look back at past Slam School videos. We've got a bunch of these now with a bunch of different kinds of resources for making and learning and doing, and all focused on issues of equity and justice. So that's probably a starting place and a shameless plug within the series, maybe.
Excellent. And so, Antero, where could people find all of our resources if they want to look back through Slam Schools?
So you can find our resources, and you can join Slam by going to slam.education. You can also find us at the hashtag SlamEDU. And you can also find our Slam Education YouTube page, which has all of the videos archived there through both of those links and on YouTube itself. Yeah.
Excellent. So number one, Jaime, thank you so much. This was great just for us to reconnect, let alone sharing all this with the world. This has been amazing. Also, for folks out there watching, we are getting close to the NCTE annual meeting, and Slam will be at the annual meeting. Please look online. We'll have more information soon about where our business meeting will take place and when, so that you should come and join us. There will also be sessions that will be dedicated to Slam that we encourage you to attend. So for right now, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Slam School.